the legend TRT Vitor Belfort. Only aged 19, Belfort dominated the UFC heavyweight tournament, winning twice in one night. His second bout of the night saw him finish a man 100 pounds heavier than him in Scott Ferocious.
Oh, left hand, he got it. Oh, down goes the zone. Over with. He got caught. Belfort lands it right to the head. Another. That's it.
The complete domination displayed by the young man would allow him to fight Tank Abbott only a couple months later. Age 20, the Phenom impressed everyone with his relentless energy and fight-ending commitment. Despite being outweighed by 60 pounds, Belfort still managed to hold his own end of the bargain. The relentlessness and hunger of the young man allowed him to find the finish. And just like that, Vitor had finished a man that was nearly 60 pounds heavier than him. Unfortunately, Belfort would be handed his first loss in MMA to none other than fellow legend Randy Couture, though this would serve as a valuable lesson to Belfort.
And there goes Randy Couture. He's still punching away. Not much defense now by Vitor.
As a young fighter, there are few moments less scarier than being face-to-face with the axe murderer, Wanderlei Silva. Belfort would remove Silva in the first round, shocking the entire world with this performance. At the time, fighters would fight under multiple banners, hence why Belfort was also dominating the Pride banner. When he returned to the UFC, we immediately could tell that Belfort was on the sauce, and his performance would reflect it all so perfectly. Belfort would show off his athletic abilities and improvements as an overall striker, and perhaps the secret juice gave him a little helping hand. These were the earlier UFC days. However, the modern format was already existing. Well, not quite everything from the modern era was existing, but you get the point. Eventually, Belfort would have the golden opportunity to avenge his loss to Randy Couture. Immediately, controversy would arise as a cut from a Belfort punch would harden the vision of Couture.
I hope he's okay.
Oh no.
Belfort became the new UFC light heavyweight champion, though it was indeed controversial. While this was an unfortunate event, Belfort could call himself a champion. Belfort would unfortunately lose the rematch, but this tale was far from done. As Vitor developed himself as a fighter, he began to look for ways to consolidate greatness as we entered the newer generation of the UFC.
Yeah, Vitor's happy to box. He's the better boxer. He's winning the stand-up.
Oh,
it makes
the
sense.
uppercut,
Look at
the
that.
uppercut. That's it.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Beautiful.
Belfort built himself a solidified streak of devastating performances that would buy him a ticket to the new-aged UFC show.
And folks, if you haven't seen that one a while ago, what a combination!
The Phenom's finish over Matt Lineland bought him a ticket to the big stage.
That left hook, the end could be near, buddy. That is it.
With TRT being legal at that time, Belfort was obviously juiced to the gills. Other than the secret juice, Belfort also had insanely fast hands paired with the ever-persistent jiu-jitsu threat. With only one win during his second stint, Belfort would be allowed to fight for the middleweight belt. In front of him was none other than the pound-for-pound best at the time, Anderson Silva. At this time in UFC history, no name was scarier than the Spiders, and Belfort would quickly find out why. Belfort was unfortunately the victim of one of the most horrendous kicks known in UFC history. Fortunately for Belfort, he'd soon be able to challenge for another belt at a weight class above. Juiced up as always, Belfort was ready to make a statement that he was not yet done. In classic Mario Yamasaki fashion, Belfort would brutally finish Akiyama, perhaps offering him more punishment than he needed.
All over Akiyama here. Oh, big shot again. Vitor swinging away, trying to finish this fight. It's a hit. It's all over.
With Belfort now back in the win column, he'd be scheduled to face Rumble Johnson in what we knew would be a banger. Belfort knew that a win over Rumble would put him in a highly favorable spot to win it all. As a Carlson Gracie black belt, Belfort knew that he'd need to use his jiu-jitsu acumen to take Rumble out of there. Sauced up, Belfort would submit Rumble Johnson in a magnificent way.
Looking to choke out Rumble.
He's got his hips down.
And win here at home.
This could be it. That's it.
What was comically hilarious about this fight is that most likely both men were pretty sauced up. Jones would adequately use his pristine wrestling to take down Vitor Belfort early on in the first round.
But Vitor, he lands a punch and he's on his back. Not good.
As we all know, Belfort is a BJJ black belt, and he locked a tight armbar on Bones, one that I'm sure 90% of the UFC roster would have tapped to.
He might break that arm, Mike. He might break that arm. Wow! You know what? It's a little high now. I think he's out. He's out. He's out. Wow.
Jones would punish Vitor for this attempt. That was perhaps the closest Jones ever came to being finished in his entire career. Boney would finish Belfort using a beautiful Kimura.
Just needs to secure the right arm. Now he's going for a Kimura.
It's all over!
That's it.
Despite the loss, people still looked at Belfort with a lot of admiration, which would allow his story to be continued. And despite the win, Jones would leave the fight injured, all a result of the relentless presence of Belfort's jiu-jitsu. Now, have you ever wondered how Michael Bisping lost his eye? This insane head kick by Vitor Belfort would place him right back where he'd want, competing once more for the title.
There it is again, that left high kick, and Bisping is opened up and in all sorts of trouble. That'll do it. Vitor Belfort has done it.
Belfort would make it back-to-back head kick finishes, this time landing an insane spinning heel kick on the rising promise Luke Rockhold.
His opponent to be twitching on the canvas. Oh, there it is! And there it is! Speed coming, Belfort!
This was perhaps the height of Belfort's popularity as well as the height of his TRT levels. Belfort was once again close to yet another title shot. In this bout, he looked to be in abnormal shape as he'd drop Henderson in the first round. Once more, for the third time in a row, Belfort would finish the fight with a kick to the head of his opponent.
Respect the story of the first 60 seconds. Hendo dropping down and Belfort drops it.
Henderson was knocked off balance there. Vitor Belfort trying to finish off Henderson.
Huge kick. Bergliota steps in.
And with that, the Phenom had bought yet another title shot, this time against Chris Weidman. Weidman at the time was undefeated, riding the momentum of wins over Anderson Silva and Lyoto Machida. Initially, it looked like Belfort was about to capture yet another first-round finish.
On the left eye of Weidman. Belfort teeing off. Those great hands of the Phenom.
Weidman, however, used his wrestling to control Vitor on the ground.
Full penetration. On top.
Both men Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
Yet again, Belfort would lose his title fight, and it wouldn't be pretty after this.
Big elbow.
Uh-oh, Vitor's in deep trouble.
Dean's gonna stop it. It is all over.
Now, for the rest of his tenure in the UFC, he'd essentially go 2-4. With the introduction of USADA, Belfort's animalistic physique was essentially gone overnight. You can still find Belfort doing some boxing these days, keeping himself active. And outside the UFC, it seems as if he's back on the sauce. As always, please do not forget to drop a like and subscribe to Martial Insight.